Good morning, everyone.
Shall we start then, or how are we going to go about it?
Yeah, ma'am, we'll start.
Shruti, Siddharth sir is joining in another 1 minute. We'll start then.
Okay, sir.
Tanmay, please make other faculty members as panelists as well.
मैं वही कर रहा हूँ सर. Priyam ma'am is also promoted to analyst. Recording will start.
Yes, Shruti, we can start now.
Okay, sir. A very warm good morning to one and all present here. Today, I, Shruti Bhatt, and
I, Sonakshi Arora,
we hereby welcome everyone in this webinar as a part of Spandan 2020 event on plot writing on behalf of VSJMC.
Everyone who loves to watch movies, a web series, or any other video content crave for a good story, screenplay, or a plot. A good script can do wonders to the project. Stories need plots because a plot is what happens in a story. Without plot, nothing would happen, and thus you would have no story. While the story in a movie tells us why and how something happens, the plot is what spans it out. Plot is most often about a conflict or struggle that the main character goes through. The conflict can be with another character or with the way things are, or with something inside the character like needs or feelings.
Before we commence, we would like to request all the participants to kindly keep your microphone in off mode, but please do keep your cameras on. I request the audience to keep sending in their questions in the chat box, which will be taken in the Q&A session after the esteemed guest make her presentation. I would also request all the participants to keep a pen and paper so that they can be a part of a couple of exercises that the esteemed guest will be taking.
Thank you, Sonakshi. Thank you, Shruti. And thank you all of you who've taken out time to be here. It's such a pleasure to be here to speak to the young minds, even though virtually, who we know are the real audiences of what we try to create, what we try to write. And like Sonakshi rightly put it out about what plot is, the only correction, Sonakshi, that I have is it's not story, plot, or screenplay. It is actually story, plot, and screenplay, which are three different elements of writing, but we'll come to that later, probably in detail. But a great introduction, and you've really set the tone up for Shruti, what you called a presentation is actually not a presentation, but hopefully just an amalgamation of everything that I have learned so far in writing and screenwriting, to be specific. So I am not going to make any presentation. I wish I could see most of you so that it was mostly just because, you know, all of us are as inquisitive about stories. We are all innately very, very inquisitive about how stories are created, because innately, inherently, we are all storytellers. We tell stories in different formats, in different forms. Some tell stories to each other. We all love to gossip. We all love to tell stories about and around each other. Some of us write, some of us don't. But the fact of the matter is, as human beings, we are storytellers, and we are what is now known as the consumers of the story. So we don't just engage with the stories, now we consume the stories. So that brings me to a very interesting point of, again, taking the leaf from what you just set up, Sonakshi, is about how we are all continuously consuming content, especially in the times and the life and times of Corona. The engagement of story, how we used to engage with stories, has drastically changed. It's no longer, stories are no longer something to just in the past, when it used to be like this community thing where everybody would get together around the chopal, or under the tree, where the wise one or the storytellers would uh, get around to tell stories of ancient times. From that sort of a very community thing, it has become very, very personal, where we are all literally consuming stories, uh, really on our palms through our phones. So therefore, what stories used to be, even say 5 years ago, have completely changed. Obviously, that has influenced how we as writers are now asked to write or are writing, because at the end of the day, what we write is not just for ourselves, it's for a certain kind of a target audience that we are reaching out to. So therefore, the most important thing that I want to actually bring to your notice is the fact that story here is not a one-way process. Plotting, therefore, is something, when we're talking about plot, it's not something which is just दिमाग का फितूर जिसको कहते हैं ना, it's not just दिमाग का फितूर in isolation cropping out of a writer's mind. It's so much more than that, because it has to reach over and beyond. The stories that we are now creating has to fight sleep. We are all binge watching. We all want rollovers. We don't want our consumers to savor the stories. There is no savoring. It's all just binge watching and a lot of fast food like eating. So that, therefore, how the plot is now done is completely changed. And of course, that also comes from the format, which has completely changed. So TV writing is very different from film writing, is very different from episodic writing, is very different from audiobook writing, is very different from what you just said, web series writing. So these are all different forms of writing. However, the classic principles of storytelling remains the same. And thankfully, there are certain principles to plotting which remains the same, which is what I intend to share with you. I hear somebody, sorry, I hear somebody cough. Can you please? Thank you. So so my attempt here will be to share some of these basic elements of plot creation, plotting. First of all, starting from what plot is, to how plotting is done, what are the various elements, to hopefully by the end of whatever 25-30 minutes that we've got together, hopefully by the end of this session, if not, we don't become writers in a day. We won't emerge as screenwriters in a session. But hopefully by the end of the day, my attempt is to make you astute audience. Can you actually not just get entertained by the plots that you're watching, the stories that you're consuming, but also look at it from a lens which is hopefully far more evolved in that sense, if I may use the word. So hopefully some of these elements that we'll share about plotting will help you become an astute audience. It'll help you engage better with the stories. So that's about the context setting of, you know, the kind of world that we are operating in, where screenwriting. I mean, I don't know how many of you know, but I have written a series called Arya, co-written in fact, and that's where. So let me just cite an example from there itself, because it will obviously be first experience. uh, Arya, in that sense, was my, and why I share this story anecdote with you is something also that I'll come to later. So Arya was the first in that sense, a long format, this kind of a series, which I got an opportunity to work on. Now, this is something very, very interesting, because this was not a web series that we adapted it from. It was actually made as a TV series. I don't know if you know, but Arya is actually an official adaptation of a Dutch TV series called Penosa, which was made some 10, 12 years ago. So how European market was consuming the TV is now reflecting on how we want to consume now in India as digital audience. So there's some similarity there, which we will come to, and therefore these universally accepted jargons now have become, like a standard practice that everybody keeps talking about. When we're saying plot, we're saying 3-act structure, we're saying one line, we're saying theme, we're saying through line, all of these. Okay, so what are these? We'll also discuss that. Coming back to Arya, so like I said, it was a TV series, but when the rights were bought by the production house, they were bought to be, for Penosa to be turned into a film. Very interesting. Now, here is a series which has probably 4, 5, 6 seasons, very, very successful seasons across Europe, which has also been adapted into English for the American market, for the North American market, and now is being adapted. Has been, the rights have been bought to be adapted in India, but as a film. Now, huge difference. There is now, when you are looking at these two different kinds of formats, in fact 3 different kind of formats now, there's a very, very strong difference. TV has a specific appointment viewing. I don't know if you remember, you are not the generation which used to watch TV, but TV has a specific appointment viewing. हम लोग 10 बजे स्टार प्लस खोल के अनुपमा देख रहे होते हैं, क्योंकि हमारी माएं वो देखना चाहती हैं. It's an appointment day after day, you know, every day 10 o'clock you're sitting there. So therefore the screenwriting process, so the plot, and specifically the plotting process for TV will be very different from the film, which is to be catered to a captive audience, which is sitting in a cinema hall, a theater. So it has to be for 2 hours. बहुत सारी चीजें वो मतलब वो करके उसको थिकन करके, अगर हम 2 घंटे में नहीं देंगे तो ऑडियंस बाहर निकल के बोलेगी यार मजा ही नहीं आया, पता नहीं क्या पिक्चर बनाई थी. So then it's a different format. Digital में, if you don't have your audience sitting through the night and watching you, what's the fun? मतलब बिंज वॉच नहीं किया तुमने, अपने दोस्त को व्हाट्सएप करके ये नहीं बताया कि हमने तो पूरी रात बैठ के 8 एपिसोड्स देखे, 9 एपिसोड्स देखे, अगर वो नहीं बोला तब तो यू आर अ फेलियर एज अ स्क्रीन राइटर. Now imagine, these are 3 very, very different kinds of expectations that the writer is actually now dealing with. So then when the project came to us as the writing team, it actually came in the format of a film script, because it was first written as a film script. Now, you again, keeping all this in mind, because the market has changed, now everything is to be catered in a certain way, we had to go back and unravel, but in a way where plot becomes very, very important. Because plot is what will keep the audience coming back again and again. And not just plot. This is web series that we're talking about, which also allows several subplots interweaving into it. So I'm sure a lot of you have already consumed a lot of content. I hate to call it content, but that's what everybody calls it. So I'm sure you've not just watched like, you know, the Indian content of Sacred Games and Mirzapur and Breathe and, you know, Made in Heaven and the likes. but I'm sure you're also consuming very, very easily available now, say a Breaking Bad or Game of Thrones. Now, if we were to come to how do we actually remember these stories, that's an exercise that we need to do. How do we remember these stories? We consume so much. कितना देखते हैं हम लोग, मतलब हर वीकेंड देख रहे होते हैं, कई बार तो असाइनमेंट्स छोड़ के देख रहे होते हैं, कई बार खाना पीना छोड़ के देख रहे होते हैं, इतना देख रहे हैं, याद कैसे रहता है? So if you think about it, the three things, no, there'll be three things probably, or four, there'll obviously be more, but three basic things which you will remember. We will come to the exercise, and I wish this was more in that sense, more interactive, but in case you want, please use your chat box and write those 3-4 things that you actually remember in that sense. Like what makes you remember something that you've watched, something that you've watched. Is it the element of thrill? Is it the character? Is it the plot? Is it the story? Is it music? Is it humor? Is it songs, music? You know, हमारे generation में जब हम लोग बड़े हो रहे थे, actually गाना, music, background music used to play a huge role in how we used to remember our stories. आशिकी का कुछ नहीं याद है, आशिकी पिक्चर का या महेश भट्ट की बनाई हुई बहुत सारी फिल्मों, शुरुआती फिल्मों का कुछ नहीं याद, सड़क का भी शायद कुछ नहीं याद, पर गाने याद हैं. So you know, this is how we remember stories. So please use the chat box and just put in some of these elements of like Parushi saying, characters, very, very good. Most important thing of a story, characters. They're actually the pillars in that sense of plot. Yes. Now we'll come to what plot is. Storyline, by and large, okay, slight difference there, but yes. Entire packaging, Dr. Praveen saying, which is the, you know, the effect that it has on us. That's also climax, very good. Climax is a very integral part of the plot. Cinematography, Jugal, clearly that's someone who's looking at it very, very technically. Yeah, cinematography, but that's a part of a production process. Attachment with characters. So yes, characters. So yeah, there's some very, very interesting some very, very interesting answers that are coming there. Dialogues, of course. उसके बाद तो फिर हम लोग वो भी listicles भी बनाते हैं, 10 dialogues to remember from race 3. Nobody remembers, and yet suspense. So we'll keep coming back to these keywords. Now another exercise for you. Take like a minute, please. Just take a minute. Think of your favorite film, preferably something which probably everybody would know or remember. And now I'm going to tell you something which is the foundation of plot. In film parlance, in script writing parlance, it is known as log line, LOGLINE, log line, which is also sometimes called the through line. But by and large, we use log line. So log line is one line, the plot in one line. What is log line? It is the plot in one line. Now, what consists of, what should we put in a log line? Most of you are journalism students here, I presume. So very interestingly, the basic of news, actually comes into play here. So news gathering, when you're writing a news or when you're gathering news, what are the questions that you're asking yourself? What should your, say, the first 3 lines of the piece that you're writing, the news piece that you're writing, or when you're gathering the news, what are the first 5 or 6 questions that you ask yourself? Can somebody please put it on chat? Yes, Pari, 5 W's and 1 H. That's what your log line has to have. That is what your log. So what is happening? Who's involved? Maybe where is it happening? Because the backdrop plays an important, you know, Avatar is Avatar because of the where, the backdrop. Or, you know, name Ramayana is Ramayana because it's happened where, because of the where. Why is it happening is something which will become the, and all of it, interestingly, all of these questions will be answered in just one word. So you may not get it right, and after having written so much, I can tell you that even after like 18 years or whatever I'm doing, 18, 20 years or whatever I'm doing, I still haven't, it takes at least 20 to 30 drafts of the log line for me to get it right. So rest assured that it's just a basic exercise that we're doing. But I just want you to actually understand whether you know engage with the log line. So just pick up one series or one film. In about 2 sentences, try to summarize the plot as you remember, keeping these 5 W's and 1 H in mind. You may or may not answer all of these questions in the log line. That doesn't matter. And please don't Google, because there are multitude of one-liners, log lines available on all kinds. You just Google log line and there'll be list of things, which is why I chose not to make a presentation, because what am I to present? There is nothing original here. We would much rather talk. सब कुछ तो Google करने से आपको मिल ही जाएगा screenwriting पे. So anyway, let's do this exercise. It's 12:17 by my watch. I am taking 30 seconds of silence, after which I'll start talking. But use that time, and it'll be nice to have some of the one-liners on the chat. Else, we'll pick up one and we'll try to look at it from the plot point of view. So 1 minute. There's a very interesting question that Rohit has sent. I don't even know. Oh, it's deleted. ये खामोशी क्या बयां कर रही है भाई? ये खामोशी बयां कर रही है कि सब लोग काम करने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं. Okay. Let's just, anybody, any logline suggestion, anything that you would like to share? Or we would straight away jump to some Sholay or some Dilwale Dulhaniya Le Jayenge kind of stuff, which will be Interstellar. An ex-astronaut leaves his daughter on Earth to go for an expedition. An ex-astronaut who leaves his daughter on Earth, how? To go for an expedition, what? Into space, where? With his mates, and finally, with the help of her daughter and human future self, passes the crucial information from a black hole to Earth. That's quite a good one. It has the plot. Chichori, life for students, the struggles they go through and how friendship helps them in every phase of life. Pretty close. So we have 2 examples here. Let's just look at them. I have read it out aloud. I'm reading it out aloud again. Rohit has written, and then there's one answer from Khushi also. So Interstellar, an ex-astronaut leaves his daughter on Earth to go for an expedition into space with his mates. And finally, with the help of her daughter and human future self, passes the crucial information from a black hole to Earth. I would call it's pretty good, because it's quite close to all the questions that we want to ask. And most importantly, there are three crucial elements to plot, which is situation, conflict, resolution. Situation, conflict, resolution. And that is what is known as the classic 3-act structure, which we've been reading from Aristotle's time. I mean, Natya Shastra ho ya kuch bhi ho, wo 3-act ya 5-act ya 7-act mein ab to divide ho jata hai. But by and large, if you were actually to break it, it just falls into these broad umbrellas of situation, conflict, and resolution. So that's what plot is made of. छिछोरे का मैंने पढ़ लिया. In 1980, royal family is going through change because of a collection of first female prime minister of Margaret Thatcher and marriage of Diana and Charles in London, Crown. Yes, even if you were, it would be interesting to actually not have the name of the it. ये आदमी अदरक हो गया है, कहीं से भी बढ़ रहा है. अंकुर, that's not plot. That is your maybe a dialogue or maybe a theme of how relationship changes and how people begin to perceive each other differently when they get married, which is the theme of Tanu Weds Manu returns. If it doesn't fit the criteria really, but like I said, it signifies the theme, which is an integral part of the plot too. Okay, let's stop it here because then we will be just spending a lot of time on plot, but I want to read these two. On a trip to Manali, an introvert girl falls for a classmate, but they have to part ways because both have different plans in life. Years later, they reunite at a friend's wedding. Where will life take them now? That's Ye Jawani Hai Diwani. A group of people in Spain attempting to carry out the biggest robbery in history, heist, as the name suggests. So interestingly, there are some names which very interestingly, the name of the show actually sometimes also not just captures the character but also the plot. Like Money Heist has the plot in its name. That's one line for you. That's your through line. And in when one is working on creating story for the for this medium, that's the first thing that you are asked to come up with. What is it that you want to tell through the plot of your story? Because that through line will define some critical elements which are required to which are required to be which become the building blocks of writing, which is, like I said, theme, most importantly characters. Characters are completely a different kind of, it's a different part, it's a different pillar, which I would not like to touch upon here when we're discussing plot, because characterization and character development is a separate art in itself, which requires in-depth study of several things. So we're not getting there. So the through lines asked for because it keeps your plot concentrated as if you have the blinkers on. Now, when you begin to develop the plot of a story, once you have the through line, the question that Rohit Srivastava had actually asked, and if I could read it out, although it's something that should be answered in the end, how do we know what is final stage of structuring and plotting when we start writing the screenplay? To answer your question, Rohit, while you are when you're plotting and actually detailing out what your story is going to be about, when each and every step of your plot is in sync with the log line or the through line, that's when you begin to work on your screenplay. That brings me to the second point, which is step outline, which is an integral part of plotting. So you have a through line. You by and large know what your story is going to be about. The second step is doing the step outline. But before that, there is something called character development, which is very, very important. But like I said, character development is an extended stream in itself, which requires, several techniques. So you actually build out your characters because they drive the plot. Your characters are driving the plot. So you need to know now what is it from the characters that is driving your plot is something that you need to do. Two things. Situation, we talked about situation, which is first act, situation. What is happening in that situation? So the key question here is, what does your character want? It's a key question that's driving your plot. Your plot is hinging on that. Arya wants to get out of the family business because it's illegal, it's bloody, it's messy. I don't know how many of you have seen Arya, but that's what it is. It's the key motivation of Arya that drives the story, causes cascading effects which become the plot and the subplots of your story. Because what's happening? There is a want, and I'm sure there's a motivation. What is Arya's motivation? Her motivation is to get out of this mess so that her children can be safe. So she wants to get out of the mess because the children can be safe. That's a motivation. What's happening in the process? Mushkile hai, there are obstacles. No story is fun story unless there are obstacles in the way of your characters. So what is plot? Plot is nothing but the need of the character, the motivation that the character is coming from, and the obstacles that either situations or people, who are also known as antagonists or contagonists in the story, are creating into the lives of these people. So that's your key. These are the key blocks. So everything, and when you keep your through line in mind, you will realize that when you're plotting, everything is going back to your key to through line. To give
And
you an
when I talk
example of
about
Sholay, which I'm sure everybody's watched, what is the through line?
this as experience from the
A
eminent
retired police officer,
panel of veteran TV
brings together
journalists
two
with us.
fugitives or two criminals to take over, to
Hello.
fight the
अब
man
हम
who's
आमंत्रित
a dread to the
में
village of Ramgarh.
P5
By and
था
large,
न्यूज
that's the
he was
log line.
और आपने कुछ दिन
So when you
पत्रकारिता
realize
25 साल पहले
everything
वहाँ
that's
की थी,
happening in Jay and Veero's
तो
life,
आपसे कई बातों
either done by
रुकने वाली
everything
बात
that's happening, whether he's meeting Basanti,
प्रेस भिजवा रहा हूँ
where
किया,
where they're
इसके लिए आपका
coming into
बहुत बहुत
Thakur's
धन्यवाद।
house
मैं
and he's
धन्यवाद देना
feeling for
चाहता
this
हूँ।
widow,
हमें बहुत
daughter-in-law,
कुछ सीखने को मिला इससे चारू मैम ने सही तरीके से
Master's
कहा
son
कि
getting killed or meeting. So everything that's happening is actually just either a motivation. Meeting Basanti is sometimes a motivation and sometimes also an obstacle when Basanti has been taken over by, has been captured by Gabbar. The killings, the attacks, the interpersonal relationships, the confusions, everything is becoming a driving force and is in some way or the other is either an obstacle, or in order to overcome that obstacle, it's a catalyst. So that's what is driving your plot. These are the key driving forces of your plot. I'm going to repeat myself. You need a through line, a one line which tells you who these people are, where it's happening, if not necessarily when it is happening, but what is happening and how it is happening and why is it happening, because the why is what I said is the want of your character. What does your character want? Because that is the driving force of the plot. My character wants to redeem himself in the eyes of the department. He was a fallen officer, so he will do everything. Fallen police officer. Breathe. I mean, I'm just randomly giving examples. Breathe. This man wants, Breathe season 1. This man wants to save his child. That's a want of that's his need and want both. And wants his organ to be replaced, so he will go out and kill everybody else who's in line to receive that organ in order to make sure that his child is getting the transplant soon. So everything. So that's a driving. So 8 episode वही चले जा रहा है. सेक्रेड गेम्स में सैफ अली खान के कैरेक्टर को अपने आप को रिडीम करना है, तो पूरा का पूरा तो 2 सीजन उसी पे निकल गया. So that's what. So like I said, through line, need of the character, what are the what is his or her motivation, and therefore the complications or the obstacles that are happening in the lives of these characters, which have a cascading effect. Because it's a series, because you have to have 5 hours or 6 hours of watching time, everything that happens, butterfly effect, I don't know how many of you have read, but there is nothing happens in the story if it does not have some sort of an impact on the larger story. So what in screenwriting parlance, please write down these phrases. They are known as seed in and payoff. What is it that you're seeding in? What is it that you're planting? And what is the payoff of that one scene or one character or one action or one word or one sentence that is spoken? So it will always have some sort of a payoff. And that it has a cascading effect. Again, to take Arya's example, if Sangram has stolen, this is season 1, so no spoiler. I don't know, for people who've not watched it, lots of spoiler alerts here. Sangram has, in the beginning, Sangram has stolen the stash. And the entire series is the cascading effect of that one action that Sangram has done. And you'll be surprised to know that impact, that reaction actually has a ripple effect even till season 2. So imagine, that's what plot is. That is what plot is. So these are the some of the fundamentals of plot writing. I wanted to take you through something called the hero's journey, which is the standard practice that is used not just in Bollywood, but also across. And I wanted to show you that chart and all of that, but unfortunately we don't have time. So please go back and read up on the hero's journey. They're very basic, simple graphs that are explained. To answer Rohit's question, when are we ready to do the screenplay? Personally, when I have done my step outline and it fits the standards of the 3-act structure, where there is situation, solid situation, motivation to the character, when I know there is obstacle and there's going to be like a huge conflict or several conflicts in the way of the character, and and then eventually it is leading to some sort of a resolution or not. If I have some of these things in place, I begin to realize that now I'm ready to do the screenplay, and I take the step outline and put it against the hero's journey parameters to see if they're actually fitting or not. There's certain very, very key elements for me to keep the audience hooked. So the other important, like one of you actually said that, what do you remember? You remember suspense, you remember intrigue. And interestingly, not just thrillers, but love stories also have suspense. Will they or won't they? Will it happen or won't it happen? Will they come together or not? Romeo Juliet done to death 1,000 times over, and yet there'll be suspense. Why? Because the need of the character will change. Even though they want to be together, there's a love story, but the context will change, the need will change, and the obstacles that are coming in their way, even though they're classic obstacles coming from, say, family or society or situations or circumstances, whether it's a dil bichara or a kayamat se kayamat tak, you will realize that they are the same classic format on which it can be fitted. So that's, if I have that classic format, my step outline matching to the parameters of the hero's journey, I am ready to dive into the screenplay writing. But very, very big, bummer, like, you will hate me for saying this, but just to give you a sense of what kind of efforts it takes to do the plotting of a series, it can take from anywhere between 6 months to 2 years to do the plotting of 8 episodes or 10 episodes that you will eventually watch in a night. That's the kind of hard work that goes into plotting or writing. And that's the outcome. That one night that audience will spend binge watching. So I'm really sorry, but I have to rush. So I just quickly want to take some of these questions so that there's so much more, and I'm hoping we'll hopefully meet again, but I have to rush into another meeting. So I'm just taking some questions here. Priyam wants to know, how does one formulate a non-linear plot which is followed by screenwriter and directors such as Tarantino, Christopher Nolan, and many others, following the beginning, middle, end model with a hero's journey in it? Priyam, I wish there was a very, very simple answer which one could actually just wrap it in. The masters that you've talked about, I am nowhere close to it, and I don't want to even actually pretend to know the answer. So I don't even want to very easily say that, oh, there is a simple formula to it. There is none. There is no formula, especially for a non-linear plot. At least for a linear plot, you know. But here is something that I have learned. So that's something maybe, I don't know if it will help you. If you are working on a non-linear plot, it still helps if you first do the linear plotting. Sometimes it's very important to know what is known as the backstories and the forward stories, especially when you want to attempt non-linear plotting, because then it will give you a sense of where these characters are coming from and where they're headed, and then pick and choose the kind of obstacles and the kind of conflicts that you want to actually bring to the story ultimately. I hope that answers your question. But the simple solution, especially when I am doing plotting across timelines and across this is us kind of a format, we just do the linear plotting for all timelines or characters. That's the simplest way to do it. Puru wants to know, why does it always feel like that the movies and series coming from the West has a better plot? Well, you should be able to tell. I hope by the end of this session you will know, you will have that answer. I was hoping. And according to me, they're better in a lot of manners. Being a comic artist myself, coming from the West, I'm sorry I didn't get the second part of your question, but coming back to the first part of your question, movies and series coming, because I'll tell you, I have an answer for this. Because we may all have the techniques. It's very easy to get the techniques, they're all available. You read 5 books on screenwriting and you'll get the techniques, and they're not very different from each other. What I said just now in 25 minutes is not original. Nothing is original there. You can all find it. But what the masters do is they hone their craft again and again and again and again, and they continue to do that. So it has a better plot because they have given 2 to 3 years in developing the plot, unlike this quick quickie that we end up throwing up on paper as screenwriters a lot. So it's about honing the craft, and that's where it comes from. Tanmay I hope that answers your question. But yes, screenwriting and specifically plotting is a tedious part of the job. And if at all any of you wants to become a writer, any of you has the dream of becoming a writer, please be aware that's a long and arduous journey that you are actually getting on. So I recommend listening to a lot of YouTube videos and reading up on a lot of these masters that you're talking of. Tanmay asks, getting a solid grasp on the foundations of plot and structure and learning to work in harmony with principles are the ways to take stories to the next level. There is no question here. Yes, you're right. What, according to you, is the best structure for a web series? How do we plot a web series? I'll try to answer it as simply as I can. Best structure, there is no best structure. With every series, with every story, there must, in fact, therefore be a different kind of a structure. But there is a certain kind of a process. It's not about the structure, it's about the process that you follow. The process must have these detailing, because the god of stories, the god of the world that you're creating is actually lying in these details. So plotting not just for the main plot, but actually doing a lot of these, thinking through the primary, secondary, tertiary, unimportant, important characters, and knowing about who these people are, being interested in their story, is the only way to plot a web series. Because in the web series, the format is such that even if a character is coming for a scene, again taking an example of Arya, because I'm presuming it's something that I've worked on, and I'm hoping a lot of you have watched it. There is this character called Ajay, who comes only one scene. He's related to, in that sense, related to a key character. No spoiler alert. I'm not going to reveal much about it, but Ajay comes only in one scene. But just to bring in this character into that one scene, we actually spent some 5 days thinking through who this character is and what is the role of Ajay in the plot. Why is he coming in? What is he doing to the key character that he's interacting with? So that's the kind of detailing that web series requires. And that's how we plot the web series. That's the process of it. I really hope it answers your question. These days, we're seeing movies and series glorifying criminals like Harshad Mehta. Do you think that the plot writer has to have his her biases kept aside? Okay, very, very as honest as possible. Very, very simple answer to this question is yes. When you're walking into the writer's room, you actually keep aside. Oh, I should have talked about the writer's room process. You don't write in isolation. You don't write series in isolation. You actually write it with other writers and other collaborators, directors, showrunners. There are 4 or 5 people in the writer's room. When you're walking into the writer's room, you have to keep the shoes of your ego and your biases out of that writer's room and walk in like a clean slate with a very, very open mind, because this is a collaborative process, because it has serious implications, not just on the format, the story that you're telling, but also on the work that you're eventually bringing in. If you're not somebody who can collaborate, my humble suggestion to you would be, please write great plots and great stories as novels. Do not come into this world if you can't collaborate with other people, because you will be here in the writer's room to serve the story, which is your God. I mean, I have to remind myself every single day in the morning that my story is my God and my team is the pujari that I am actually I'm working with, I'm collaborating with, and we are all here to actually just to serve this story and look at the sublime purpose of it all. So that's the thing. Yes, you have to keep your biases aside. Tanmay, last question, hopefully, because I'm already like, OTT has brought upon an arena of full freedom as it is still an unregulated platform. Great point. Yes, great question. You being from journalism background and traditional school of thought, who said I was traditional school of thought? I'm sorry, I take serious offense in that presumption. But no, I'm kidding. How do you see this freedom, both in terms of you or as a writer? Okay, so it's very interesting because it's a double-edged sword that you keep walking all the time as a writer, especially of the OTT platform, for the OTT platform, because while you have to keep the, like I said, the interest of the story and the interest of the team and the interest of the format in mind, because there are implications. You're not just telling a story, but it's an expensive proposition. It has serious implications on various things. So while you're aware of that, you also have what is known as your own quest in your heart. I mean, I don't know how else to explain that. But personally for me, I mean, I can't speak for other writers, but personally for me, I am very, very and very, very conscious of some of the things that I don't believe in or I don't stand by. So if unnecessary gore or unnecessary violence or unnecessary foul language is something which I don't abide by, then I won't. Then my choice is not to write, say, a Mirzapur. I can't write a Mirzapur. So it's a choice that I make as a writer, and that's what you need to do all the time. That okay, these are certain kind of stories that you want to be associated with, and there's some which you don't want to be associated with. So that's a very, very personal choice that you continue to remember and hopefully continue to abide by. I hope that answers your questions. So I'm really sorry, but I have to rush. I have other people waiting. But hopefully we'll get to interact more. But do read up. It's a great medium. It's a and the world needs storytellers. You guys are fresh and young. You've already consumed a lot of content already. In fact, inherently, instinctively, you know about storytelling far more than probably some of us as practitioners. So there's a great world of opportunities here. The thing is to just prepare yourself and keep honing your craft all the time. That's the last thing that I wanted to say. So yes, Praveen.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for such an insightful session. We feel so delighted to have you with us. Now, we would like to request our faculty in charge, Dr. Praveen Kumar Singh, sir, to give a vote of thanks.
Thank you, Sonakshi. Thank you, Anuji, that though we started late, but you gave a proper time to us
You talked about the intricacies, you talked about जो एक बारीकी होती है प्लॉट राइटिंग की, जो छोटी छोटी चीजें होती है जिसको आपने बताया। आपने बच्चों को समझाया कि वास्तविक दुनिया क्या है और प्लॉट राइटिंग कैसे की जाती है, कैसे उसको इंटीग्रेट किया जाता है। आपने कई बातें कही जो it was very enlightening for all of us, to know about these minute things, these intricacies, the principles of plot writing. We are very grateful to you that you joined and you gave us time. We would like to have some more sessions with you in future, in time to come, so that we get a complete understanding, knowledge, and much of your knowledge and expertise which can be given to our student. I thank all the faculty members who have joined here. Thank you to our chairperson, Professor Siddharth Mishra, Professor Dr. Charulata Singh, Dean VSGMC, the management of WIPS, all the student coordinators who made this event successful. Thanks to all. Thank you, Anuji.
Thank you so much, Dr. Praveen. And the last thing before I sign off, from here on, whenever you were consuming a story, consuming content or watching a story, just ask yourself the basic question: what is the story here? What is the plot saying? And what is the situation, conflict, and resolution? That will be the beginning of engagement with plot. And talk about it. And hopefully by the time we meet next, you would have already been initiated into the world of storytelling in that sense. Thank you so much. Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Now we'll be concluding this event. Thank you all for joining. Have a good day. We will be circulating a feedback form. Please do fill it. Thank you.